Hello friends, and welcome to today's Sunday Tea Time live stream. Hope you're all doing well. Do come say hello in the chat, let me know who's out there. Especially if it's your first time, come say hello. And if you're new to these streams, welcome. These are just a chance for me to do some drawing or some animation in OpenToonz and Tahoma 2D. And for you to watch along, maybe learn a thing or two, to ask questions about what I'm doing or about the software, or just join in with the chat. So today I'm going to be working on walk cycles, showing how to get started with them, and I want to draw a couple of examples of walk cycles today, but more details on that in a few minutes. First, let me jump into the chat and say hello to everyone. So we had Love Baking join us earlier on today and got in here nice and early. Sir Jan, hello there, welcome back. Back from your exams, good, how did they go? Hopefully well. Hello there, Tom. Glad you could join us again. And we've got Maria with us. Hello there, Maria. Yes, Love Baking still here. Glad you hung around because you was the first one to join in the stream earlier on today. Great to see so many regular names coming back to join us. So we've got a busy day planned today. Quite a few things to get through. So I hope everything's coming through okay, the picture's okay, the sound's okay. I'll presume it will be, and I'll just continue regardless until you tell me different. We've got that Welsh mum, or was it a Welsh man? Started in OpenToonz about a week ago, first time animating. Well, that's fantastic, great, right at the beginning of your journey. Love how you teach. Thank you, I appreciate that. I hope you're getting on with it okay and you're starting to pick up what you can do with the programme. Art with Amar, hello Amar, good to have you with us. Absolutely Maria, you will have fun. Throw yourself in there, have a go. And if you can join us on these streams, then please do so. And again, the idea of today's stream is for you to join along with me if you've got time and if you're near your computer to see what you can all produce together. So to give everyone else a chance to catch up and to connect, because I know it always takes a while for everybody to get started, I've got a few things I want to run through. So as I like to do at the start of the streams, I like to talk about and share what's been happening this past week. What happened last week? So this is a section just for me to get a chance to tell you all about any OpenToonz or animation news that I've come across since we last streamed, to share what you've been working on that you've shared either in the Discord server or on any of my other socials, and I've shared some of your art in the kitchen, as you'll see a little bit later on when I take a break, and also to share what I've been working on recently and to detail any of my plans in the near future. But first off, let's take a look at my last video. And this is from a couple of weeks ago, where I showed how you can edit your photos in OpenToonz. And of course you can use any other software, image editing software, to edit your photos. But I know a lot of people use photos for backgrounds of animation, or just to animate using real world assets, photos of the real world. So I wanted to show how you can edit your photos. And what I did, I merged two photos together to bring in a phone box. I've got a few here in the thumbnail, and also I replaced the sky, so that you can to show how you can replace the sky if you've got, say, a dark clouded sky behind your main photo, and you'd like a brighter image back there. So just to show how you can edit your photos in general. And the result came out really nicely, and I've got a copy of it on my desk here. So this led me on to my next video that I haven't finished yet. I started recording it last week. I've begun editing, and I've got a lot more editing to do with it. I've got the thumbnail to finish off, but I've got the start of the thumbnail here that I was going to share today. Refraction Studio, hello there, welcome to the stream. Glad you could make it. And Sharo Boy, thank you, glad you're here. I hope you can join in today and do some drawing with us. We'll get to that in a few minutes. So the thumbnail so far for next week's video is this, and it's talking about how you can animate a photo in OpenToonz. And I'm going to change around the thumbnail a little bit more. I've still got to take a photo and pop my little face on there. But the idea is that I've created an animation based on that same single photo to show zooming in towards the photo and different layers separating differently, and you're able to see some parallax between different layers. And also by replacing the sky, I've got the sky drifting across the background. So it creates a bit of an animated scene. And it's the sort of thing you might see at the start of a scene in TV programmes to set the scene where you're outside of a house or an office block and you have a small animation at the beginning. Or just to animate old photos of yours that you want to just to give some movement to. Perhaps you've had a day out somewhere you really enjoyed and you want to be able to animate it and make it a bit more lively. So that'll be coming out, all being well, this coming Friday. Hello, Sword of God. No, I'm not on TikTok, I'm afraid. No, I've not been on there yet. I don't really make suitable content that would be worthy of TikTok, I don't believe. There are ways to donate things towards the channel, and I've got details of that on my Discord server, and do mention it occasionally on the channel here, where you can buy me a coffee, or here on YouTube you've got the super chats if you want to. So there's plenty of places where you can help out if you want to, but TikTok really isn't for me at the minute. So yeah, so this video came out really well, the output, and in fact I've got the output I believe I've already added here onto the screen. So here we go, this is what it's like. So it starts off with the sky animating across, and then a very short zoom into the image with a bit of parallax of the trees and the front wall below the church moving at a different pace, so there's a little bit of overlap. So the intention is from a single photo you aren't going to get a lot of animation, but you can add some overlapping animation. Now if you take a wide photo, of course, you can have the scene going sideways, and again you can add extra elements in front or behind of others to see some parallax movement. So that's available, and this video hopefully will give you enough tips to get you started doing that. TCG, hello, welcome to the stream. And Full Chain, you've made it, thank you. Glad you could make it. So what else have I done this week? I wanted to mention a couple of things I've done. Huge thanks to Soda Pop, who shared with the group a bunch of textures that we can use inside OpenToonz. And he sent me a copy of the textures that he's created, and I've uploaded them to the Discord server. So if I show you where that is. Just bring this onto my screen and then I'll show it up. There we go. Okay, let me show that. There we go. Okay, so if you go to the Discord server, inside the OpenToonz Tahoma 2D help section, there's the downloads and links. At the bottom of here, you can see the textures that Soda Pop shared with the group. So that's a zip file, and if you download that, inside there's instructions of where to place the textures. And also you'll notice a couple of FX plugins that Tom has created. Tom Doing Art, who joins us here on the stream quite a lot. So they're also available on there with details of where to copy them to, and that gives you 2 new FX plugins that you can use in the effects editor. Well worth taking a look at. So what have you done? Well, as always, quite a lot. You've shared lots of art and animation on the Discord server, and lots of chat, which is great to see. And as I said, I've shared a couple of pieces of art on the fridge in the kitchen that you'll see later when we take a break. But I wanted to highlight one video from Ungut40 on the server. Let me play that in the background there. And it's just really professional and really professionally done. And it's part of a music video he's working on. and he's created, I believe, 1 minute so far of a 2.5-minute video. It's taken about 3 months so far producing that minute, and here's a small section that he shared with us, which looks so good, so nice, that I had to get this shared today on the stream. So thank you for sharing that with us. And as always, if you've got any art or animation to share, drop it over onto Discord. We always like to see it, whether it's a work in progress, whether you're just starting out on your art journey, or whether it's professional quality like this. Please do share, we'd love to see it. Let's just take that up. Oh yes, and the final thing I wanted to share was some OpenToonz and Tahoma 2D development news. So if I bring open my other screen, here we go. So there's 4 pieces of news I wanted to share with you, and all of these are linked down below here on YouTube, so you can take a look at them yourself to find out the full details. Yes, the Welshman, it really does look great. I really can't wait to see the full video, and when I do, I'll be sure to share it here on the streams, as well as over on my Twitter. It'll be on Discord. You'll see it everywhere. So the first thing I wanted to mention was that there's now a TV Paint export feature just been put into OpenToonz. So if you download the latest nightly build, either now or in the next few days, you should have these available. And this is to export the XSheet information ready for TV Paint import, and also for importing to After Effects if you use After Effects. I don't use those 2 programs, so I've not tried this out. I'm not quite sure how it works with importing the XSheet and then the drawing separately, but it sounds like a really useful thing to have for those of you that use those programs. So that's the first one. And then the second thing is a really small fix for when you create a new FX node. Hopefully you can see this clear enough. Sometimes when you create a new FX node, it appears at the far side of the node layout, and it's quite inconsistent of where it appears, so you always have to move nodes around and reorder them. Sometimes on a busy FX schematic, it's hidden behind other nodes and it's difficult to find. So now it's been coded to be more consistent. So you can see here at the right hand side, it should, sorry, at the bottom here, it should place the node nearer to where the actual column node is, to make it easier to find and easier to place in a nice, neat way. There is still some overlap, as you can see, but at least the node is closer to where you expect, so it should be easier to find. So hopefully that'll be out soon and will make working with the FX schematic a lot easier. And then this last fix for OpenToonz is a tiny fix that some of you may have noticed, most of us won't have noticed, is that the colour of text on some of the dialogues has been fixed. So it was, for instance, on this one here, the canvas size dialogue, you've got the word anchor. Let me open that up separately. There we go. The anchor at the bottom right here, that was shown in black, and if you're using a dark theme, you won't necessarily be able to read the text, or it's trickier to read. So now they use the same colour as the rest of the text and follow the same theme. So that's the canvas size dialogue, and also the export level dialogue. You can see the difference here, where before it was white on grey instead of being black, and now it's all the same colour, so it's all consistent and easy to read. Hello there, Kronos. Welcome to the stream. Yes, I know what you mean, Sharo Boy. It's something that the FX node placement is something that bothers me from time to time. While you're working with half a dozen columns and a few effects, it doesn't really matter. As soon as you get a bit more complicated with 12 columns, 15 different effects, they can really overlap and get in each other's way. So anything that helps keep that organised is a good thing. And clearly it's something that Shun and other people have had a problem with it being fixed. So as I say, try out the nightly builds either now or in the very near future, the next few days, and you should be able to get that fix for those. Ashnan, hello, welcome to the stream. Good to have you with us. So the final development issue I'd like to mention is for Tahoma 2D. And some of you on the Discord may have seen the conversations about this, but basically it's a long-standing request that some users from other software, particularly static image drawing software, are used to drawing their lines on one layer and doing the fills on a separate layer. And in OpenToonz and Tahoma, you can't do that, except now with this fix or this feature release, you'll be able to. So what he's done is when you go to the bucket fill tool, on the toolbar, you'll see an option called Refer Visible, if you see that up there. And that means that any visible columns are now treated, if this is ticked, any visible columns are now treated as though they're in the same current drawing. So if you draw lines in one column, in one level, and then a separate level in another column above it, or behind it, use the bucket fill tool, it'll use those lines to fill in between. So it does involve you showing and hiding columns as relevant to make sure you get the right columns, but you can apply your fills on a separate column to the lines now, which can make lots of things easier for some of you, for doing effects, for editing the fills once you've coloured them in, and also for some issues you sometimes get with a line and a fill not quite aligning up properly, where it doesn't quite fill into the edges and you have gaps. It should stop a little bit of that, hopefully. So that's coming soon in Tahoma 2D. And I know the past couple of days have been some additional fixes added for that, to improve it, to make it work with the frame range and other features of the fill tool. So that's being completed now as we speak, but by the next release of Tahoma 2D that'll be available, and from the nightly builds again, hopefully in the next few days that'll be available to try out fully. So do give that a go and see how it goes, and hopefully this new feature will go over to OpenToonz at some point. Likewise, the 3 fixes from OpenToonz will come over to Tahoma 2D in the near future as well. So I'm looking forward to getting that out there. Yeah, this will really help a lot of people, I think, in this fill option. I can't show you that today, Kronos, unfortunately. I've not downloaded the build that has this feature in, so I can't do so. Yeah, it is. That's right, Amar. It's in lots of other programs, but mostly it's a static image feature. But I know, obviously, if you work from static images and go into animation, it's a feature you expect to have, and it's something you expect to be able to do in the software. So we'll see how well this works, and how useful it is for animation. Because for me personally, having everything in a single layer, a single level in a single column, means things like adjusting the timing. I can just extend one column's timing and not worry about multiple columns. So of course, if you've got your lines in one column and fills in another, then you'll have to highlight both columns and change the timing of both at the same time. So it's something to have a play with and see if it helps. I think for doing backgrounds in OpenToonz or Tahoma 2D, doing backgrounds, this could be really useful, to help separate different elements of the background. I know I do recommend to lots of people to create different levels when working on a background, and you can always flatten it later by rendering it out or collapsing to sub-X sheets so it only shows as one column. But by having it in separate columns, it means you can edit it in a more flexible way, and this again adds another level of flexibility. I think it sort of is out at the minute, Kronos, because Manon John did ask for people to test it to see how it goes, to see how it works for them. Let me take a quick look on this page and remind myself where it is. If we go to the files change section, if anybody remembers where you can download it from, I'm sure you can download it from this link here. But I forget exactly how you get to it. So you can test it now if you want to. I just can't remember where, but somewhere on this page, as I say, this is linked down below so you can take a look. I thought there was like a link button somewhere to download it from here directly. Yeah, unless somebody can help out with that. I'm sure it's in there somewhere. We could perhaps find out. So pop onto the Discord, you can find out exactly where you can get that from if you want to give that a go. Hello there, Claude. Welcome to the stream. You say you made a new walk cycle. Is that on the Discord? Can't see it in there at the minute, but please do share that with us. Full chain's seen it, so I guess it is on there somewhere. Hello Vasu, welcome. Glad you could make it today. Ah, on YouTube, right, no wonder. Right, I've not seen that yet. I'll take a look at that. If you've rendered that out as a GIF, then please do share it on the Discord server, because we are going to take a look at your animations for walk cycles today. So if you want to share that right now, that'd be great to see. Casa Chap, hello there. Good to have you with us as well. Einar, hello. A new person. Good to have new names popping up. Good to have you with us. Is this your first time on the stream? Suhas. Oh, we've got a full house today. Great to have you all here. Let me clear up some of my windows on my screen, get everything ready for working with today's animation. So as I say, if you want to take a look at any of those options there, any of the new features, take a look down in the description. I've got a link to all of them. And I've got some notes here on my screen of exactly what I'm going to be working on today. I'm going to be using OpenToonz today. I've not been into Tahoma 2D for a while, but I think I'll stick with OpenToonz for today. Obviously everything I'm doing you can do in both OpenToonz and Tahoma. Let me pop a quick question to Manong John about that. Let me just do that onto the Discord now. Be right back in 1 second. And then when I get that link, I'll share that with you all on the Discord server for you to take a look at. Okay, should we jump over to OpenToonz then and see what we've got and see what we're working on today. Okay, here we are. So we're working on walk cycles today. And I've done this before in the past on a stream. I went through my thoughts on creating a walk cycle. And I did have a different exercise planned for today to work on some animation. But then I was watching a live stream earlier in the week from Animator Island. And while I was watching it and listening to him talk, I thought I'd do a bit of drawing. And I found myself working on a walk cycle again, which I've not done for a long time. And then I just kind of got used to that and thought, I quite enjoyed that. I think I might do that on Sunday. So here I am, working through this. And then the following day, after I decided that, our friend Tony Gaddis also talked about walk cycles in one of his videos. And I've got a link to that down below in the description if you want to watch that. It's well worth a look, where he explains how he created a walk cycle for one of his monsters to walk onto the screen in preparation for the rest of the animation. And I also saw a video by, if I can remember her name, and I always forget the name for some reason, Stylus Rumble, that's right, who does lots of animation tutorials, a long-term animator. She has lots of tutorials on his channel, and again, down below in the description I've got a link to that. If you're interested in animation, she's a great girl to follow, a fantastic animator, and she prepared a walk cycle based on reference and showed how she goes about doing that. And the reference she used was a video called 100 Ways to Walk by Kevin Parry. And he has a treadmill, you may have seen this before, and he walks in 100 different styles with a few steps for each one to give you a chance to step through frame by frame to see how the walk cycle looks from a real person that you can use for your animations. So it's been a bit of a walk cycle week, so I thought I'd start on that today. So I've got a question here from Vasu. Are hooks useful for frame by frame? Potentially, hooks can be useful. Traditional frame by frame is literally drawing on the sheet of paper where you want your character to be. So you wouldn't use any of the additional features of hooks or the Animate tool or the plastic tool. You are drawing literally frame by frame. But for instance, if you're drawing a walk cycle, a hook can be useful to place on your character. Then you can animate the hook moving across the screen potentially, or attach to something else. So if the character's walking on a, I don't know, like on a treadmill themselves, but the treadmill is on a rocking boat or something. So you've got lots of connections there. Hooks can be really useful for that kind of thing. Yeah, Ashnan, absolutely. Whatever strikes your interests. Lots of people find their interest for animation and cartoons from lots and lots of places. And most of us start when we're younger, watching cartoons on TV in one form or another. And for me, it stuck with me all my life. And it wasn't really until OpenToonz came about that I had the tools to actually work on these things. So yeah. Keep on keeping on with that. So first, let me create a new project then, and I'll call this. Let me bring up my notes so I know where I'm going to. So I'll just call this Walk Cycles on Stream. And this first one, let's just call it Cycle 1. So I've got a project loaded and waiting to go. Yeah, Vasu, for moving looms on different levels, you don't need hooks. You just need to connect your columns on the stage schematic. So if you go to the schematic and go to the stage schematic where you see all your columns, they'll be listed there, then you connect them on there. But if you're interested in cutout animation, check out my playlist about cutout animation. I've put a number of tutorials on there, starting from very simple through to more complicated ones. And the simple one is using BB-8 here, because he's got just two limbs, his main body and the head on top. So I was trying to create an animation or a character as simply as possible. So I used BB-8, and that's who you see up here running around on the shelf there. And I created that animation on the stream a month or two ago. Again, just to show how you can use cutout animation and also to create a nice little animation to use in my study. So yes, it's really pretty simple. I wouldn't worry about using hooks for that. But if you check out that playlist, in that playlist I do talk about hooks and show how you can use them with your cutout animations. Casa, you say you think you're only allowed a certain number of levels. Not really. I've not found a limit yet. You can have as many as you've got space for on disk. and it always suggests, OpenToonz always suggests a new unique name for each level. So you should be fine having as many as you'd like. Why do you think you can only have so many? Do you get an error message when you try to add one? Because I know, for instance, I've mentioned Dave at Blended Planet quite a lot on the channel here. He's animating a cartoon. He's created almost 2 full episodes of 24 minutes each, and he's created it in a single project. And because of that, every level he creates is being created in the same folder. So he's got many dozens of levels. So I'd be surprised if you're hitting that limit. But again, why do you think you're hitting that limit? Hello there, Golden Slime. Glad you could make it. Good to have you here. So question from Claude asking where to upload the walk cycles. If you go to the Discord server and then go to the OpenToonz Tahoma 2D world in your animations. So if you pop your animations in there, and if you render them as a GIF, it'll be played as a cycle, a never-ending cycle. Whereas if you use MP4, it plays once and stops. So do render as a GIF. And I'll be checking inside this channel throughout the stream for you to upload your drawing. So please do upload what you create today so we can take a look at it on the stream. Before you render though, do make sure to go to your scene settings dialog and increase the alpha on the background slider so that you get a white background, or at least the same colour background as your camera. Otherwise you get a transparent background, and depending on people's views, so I'm using a dark theme, then if you're drawing in black or a dark colour, I won't get to see the animation. So do make sure you've got a background colour set, and I'll leave that set there for me. And if you do upload onto the Discord server, drop me a message in the comments so that I notice that you've done so, and then we'll take a look at some point. Yeah, if you, Casa Chap, going back to your question about the levels, if you're naming your levels, which is sometimes useful to do, they must be unique names. So if you've already created a level called leg for one of your characters, you can't create a second level called leg. And that's because each level is saved as a separate file on disk in the same folder for one scene. So every level needs to have a unique name. So again, I've mentioned before about going back to when you create your levels, that it's really useful to understand the files on disk that make up your project, so that you know that where each level will be and why it's important to have the names unique. Thank you, Tom. The questions for live stream channel really is just for that, for questions for the live stream. So that's really for mainly, the idea is mainly questions during the week of things you'd like me to answer on the following live stream. But again, wherever you've shared your animation to, I will find it if you mention it in the chat there. Whether you need to delete the other ones you've created or just create a new unique name. And as I always suggest to people, create a new project for each scene. If you're creating all of your scenes in the same project, you will get this kind of name clashes between scenes. And if you delete the file on disk, when you next reload the scene, you won't have that drawing. So I don't think you should necessarily delete the file on disk. I'd be more tempted to start a new project and a new scene, and then you'll have a kind of empty space to create your levels in. Hi there, Carol. Welcome to the stream. I've got my lovely cup of tea again, which I made a little bit late today, which is why the stream was a little late starting, just by a minute or two. Because I was getting things ready and suddenly it was like 2 minutes to 3 o'clock. So I had to rush around. Katie Light is here. Hello, Katie. No K-light, apologies. No problem at all. We haven't started doing any drawing yet. I shared some news earlier that you might be interested in, so perhaps take a look at the video after the stream's finished. It'll be up on YouTube later on today when we close down. So Sharo Boy is asking how to draw angled straight lines. I can show you that straight away. Let me just create a level. It depends on the level type, of course, Shiro. If you're using vector levels, when you draw with the brush, which normally draws the lines that you draw, so you get wavy lines. If you hold, I think it's one of the modifier keys, I think it's Alt as you draw. No, Control or Shift. Yep, there we go. Hold the Shift key as you draw and you get a straight line. And then when you release the pointer, then it stays on the screen as that straight line. So hold Shift, draw the line, position it, and then release to have the line stay on screen like that. And if you're using one of the other two levels, the raster or the Toonz raster, then really the only way to draw a straight line in OpenToonz is to use the geometry tool and then choose the line option from there. And then as you click and drag, you get this red line marking where the line will be, and when you release, it'll then draw the line on screen. Like that. But if you're using Tahoma 2D, then the brush tool on all three level types has a number of options for drawing straight lines, and they're listed at the very bottom of the screen in a status bar. So it involves holding the modifier keys, Control or Shift, or to use the Alt key if you're using the perspective tools. Only in Tahoma 2D. If you use Tahoma 2D, then the Control key allows you to draw 90-degree or 45-degree lines. So again, I do suggest to people to install or to set up Tahoma 2D as well as OpenToonz on their system, because then you can switch between the two depending what you're working on. Absolutely, Maria. Yeah, new projects make it less cumbersome, because if it's working through and looking at folders with lots and lots of files in, it will slow it down. So it's just easier and better to create separate projects. No, Carol, I've not. I've not seen the art from the game book of travels. No, I've not. So let me just delete those two columns there. Okay, let's jump in and take a look at walk cycles. So what I'd recommend starting off with is if you go to Google first, and again, please do join in today if you can, if you're near your computer. So literally bring up a browser and do a search for walk cycle, and then in Google click on the images button to get the image search. And the image I always look for is this center one here. Now there are other walk cycle styles that you can look at, but this is one of the simplest ways to look at a walk cycle and the way I always start. The Welshman. If you can get a drawing tablet, that's always the easiest way to work with drawing and animation. If you do go that route, firstly I'll say you don't need to get a screen tablet. A non-screen tablet works really well and takes only a little bit of getting used to. So there are some you can pick up quite cheap for maybe £30–40, similar sort of price in dollars. If you go onto eBay, you can get second-hand ones from people that have tried them out and they've lost their interest. So you'll find some cheap bargains on eBay for that if you want to. You can use a mouse quite easily for drawing with if you're working with vector levels. Mice work really well with vector levels. And Joe Henning, who you often find joining us on the channel, he uses a mouse all the time for his drawings and animation, and he only uses vector levels for that reason. And he'll often use the geometry tools for placing rectangles, circles on the screen, and then adjust them afterwards with the control point editor that you can see there on the left of the screen. So you can get on with a mouse, okay. It's kind of up to you when you're ready to go for a graphics tablet. There's a lot to learn in the software that you can learn using a mouse at the very beginning of your animation journey. You can start to get a feel for timing, how to work with the timeline, and a lot of other areas. But if you decide you want to get a little bit more serious with your hobby, then a graphics tablet is the best way to go. Yes, this Preston Blair one here, Amar. Yeah, there's lots of different versions. This is my favourite. So if you want to join along exactly with what I'm doing, then we'll choose this one. Feel free to try another, or feel free to not use any if you like. I just want to show kind of what I've been doing when I've been drawing walk cycles. So what you do is you select it, then you get the larger image on the right, you can right click and then save the image as to save it onto disk. So if you save that onto disk somewhere, and then you can have that either on a separate screen, if you have two screens, or you can keep it on the corner of your screen to the side. So you could change this to take up less space on the screen and place it at the side if you want. But for a full screen view, which I prefer, what I like to do, if you go to your Windows menu and open the Flipbook, and that's opened on my second screen, so let me bring that over here. So this is the window that normally appears when you've rendered an animation or previewed an animation to show it on screen, but you can also use it just to show images. So if you right click on your Flipbook, you can load a file with the top option, browse to where you've downloaded that file to, and click load. And now you've got an image within the program and then a window that you can dock. So I will dock that up at the top here. And with the Flipbook, you can use all of the normal options that you do for managing in the viewer. So on my pen tablet, I've got a button set aside for pan, so I can move it around. And on the side of my tablet, I can zoom in and out into my viewer or into this Flipbook to make it fit. Like that. So now I've always got the image on screen available for me to refer to as I'm working on the cycle. Okay, Claude, let me take a look at that. Yeah, screen tablets, you don't need. People always seem to think because they see professionals using them that to get a professional output, you need to have the equipment that professionals use. You really, really don't. I used a standard non-screen tablet for about 10 years before I treated myself to a screen tablet. And it was a bit of a treat. It's not something I needed. I could have continued quite comfortably without it. I just managed to be able to treat myself to it, so I did. So stick with a non-screen tablet initially, absolutely, until you decide you're spending a lot of time on this hobby, or if you're going to be more serious to become a profession. Otherwise, a standard non-screen tablet is just fine. Okay, so let's take a look at Claude's walk cycle. Here it is, yeah. So you've shared the MP4 version, I see. If you can share the GIF version. Oh, so it's moving across the screen rather than the walk cycle in place. Let me make this larger so everyone can see that. Let's hit replay a couple of times. I love the character. Excellent. Yeah, that's a great start. Are you able to join us today, Claude, to do some more drawing? Yes, absolutely, Tom. It does need a description. I'll get onto that. Again, if you remind me later if I don't do it, then please do, but I'll try and remember to come back and do that. There's a question in your questions. Great, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. And in animations, I saw Golden Slime had shared the walk cycle. So again, let's make it full screen, see how that plays. So that's playing a bit jerky, but again, that's because of the stream and my computer under a lot of pressure. So let's go back to the smaller version and we can see it moving there. I'd like to try and slow that down to take a look at that to see exactly what steps you've got in there, Golden Slime. So again, if you can join us today and do some more drawing with us, we'll see if what we're doing matches up to what you did in this walk cycle here. But thank you for sharing that, and thank you for creating a fun character behind it. It's really tempting to try and just create a human character, and until most of us have practiced, very much me included, it's difficult to draw a good walk cycle with a realistic looking human character. So today I was planning on slightly stealing a bit of a style from Tony Gaddis and his Little Monsters for my cycle. So you'll see that very shortly. But thank you for sharing that, Golden Slime, and keep your animations coming through, everybody. Okay, Claude, no problem. Catch you back here soon. Yeah, when often there's two ways to do the walk cycle. Let's start off with that, really. The one way is to have the character literally walking across the screen, as you had with your animation, Claude. And that can make it easier to align the feet. So as the character starts to walk, he places, say, the left foot down, and then as he takes his step, the left foot should stay absolutely rock solid still as the right foot moves over. So as you move through your animation, you can see that the left foot stays still until the right foot stands down, then that stays still, or at least it rocks over that position. And it's much easier as the character walks across the screen to do that. And the second way is to do the walk cycle where the body stays in the center of the screen and the legs are walking around it as though you're walking on a treadmill. And then you can later either move the background behind the character at the right pace to make it look like they're walking as the background moves. But it's really easy for the feet to slip on the floor and for the characters to kind of moonwalk as they walk. So you need to really be careful on where you're putting the spacing for that. So there's two main ways to go about it. And the way I'll be doing today is for walking on the spot, and then you can render out the animation as a looping GIF animation, and you can just keep playing constantly, and it's easier to see mistakes or to see where you're going right and wrong. But once you've created that cycle, you can always move the drawings so that the feet line up properly and have them moving across the screen. You've got the option in both ways. And this might be where the hooks can come into play, as we talked about a few minutes ago. Or you can simply use the select tool and just place each drawing relative to the previous so that it looks in the right place. So the option's there for you. So the style of the walk cycle could depend on many different things based on where the character is or what they're doing. So for instance, if you're walking a tightrope or walking through very cold water, you'll have a different physicality about the body, and also about the character's feelings and intent. So a happy walk cycle or an angry one or a determined one, you could look quite different. So you want to first think about the character and their intent and how they look during the walk cycle. And that's where the video of the 100 walk cycle ideas that's linked in the description could be useful to get some ideas of how you want your character to walk. But today I want to do a middle of the road walk cycle just to fit in the technicality of actually moving a character and how you might approach that. So they won't be walking in a great style, it'll be quite simple, but then next week we may come back and add a bit more style into it. Natraj, welcome, glad you're here. Glad you made it. So let's get started. So let's add our drawing level, and the level type I'll use doesn't really matter to me. I'm not using vector because I'm not going to be adjusting the lines once the character's created, and I want to draw quite sketchy and quite rough initially. We could always draw over it in a neater line in vector or other level, but I want it sketchy today, so vector is out. The Toonz raster level I would mainly use if I want to change the colours later. So that's one of the main features for me. So if I want to draw it in one colour and then adjust the colour, I'd pick Toonz raster level. But it also has another feature of you can have a smooth slider. So if you're drawing something where you want to have a smoother line and your hand is a bit shaky, or as we were talking about a few minutes ago, you're using the mouse or a trackpad on your laptop, I know a lot of people do that, then a Toonz raster with a smooth level of maybe 15 to 20 might be the best thing for you. But I'm using the tablet today and I'm happy for it to look messy and scruffy in front of you. So let's choose a standard raster level. So as always, I've got the standard raster level. I'll create a new palette entry. I never use the first two palette entries if I can help it. And this allows me to delete the palette entry later. If I want to remove those lines, I can edit it a lot easier and do other things with it that you can't do with the first two. And I'll choose from the raster list the pencil drawing brush because it gives a nicer, neater look than drawing with kind of an ink style brush. So I choose this pencil brush here. There we go. Let's set this default size back to 0. And as always, as I've said before, when you start a new level or a new project or scene and you change your tool for the first time, try and remember to check out the options on the options toolbar, because it remembers the last values you set, and the last values could be totally wrong for what you're doing today. So always have a quick glance across the top and see what you need set there. Because for instance, I've been caught out leaving the opacity quite low, and then I choose a brush and try and draw, there's very little line. So I need to make sure that's up to 100%. So the first thing to do is to draw the body on frame 1. So I was trying to think what to draw, and to get a simple walk cycle, especially if it's your first or one of your first, I really wouldn't worry about trying to draw a neat character like these up here, or to necessarily try and draw your own favourite characters. If you're practicing, try and practice the walk cycle on its own, away from the complexities that you maybe have in your character or in your imagination. Just try and keep it quite simple. So the simplest way you can do it is draw a circle, and we'll work from that, and then you can have your legs hanging off that if you want to. Keep it simple as you need to do to get started. But to get started today, to give you something a bit more interesting to look at, I thought I'd draw a little bit of a monster, and it's not going to require too much editing or redrawing because of the way I'm going to do the cycle. Let me show you what I mean. So I've got a little sketch down here on paper that I made earlier. So I started off with a circle for his body, and I want him to be kind of an egg shape, Mr. Eggy. So something like this, and then I can simply grab the eraser and remove the lines I don't want. So say this is a sketch, it's not going to be neat, so I'm not too concerned by it looking fantastic, fantastically neat. So I want to pop a little cap on him. Erase that, and I was going to give him the famous giant eyebrow from Tony Gaddis and a couple of eyes here just looking forwards. And let's give him crazy smile with his teeth sticking out there, and I do always enjoy having a couple of spots on my little monster. There we go. So we're going to have, that's what we want for his main body. Nice simple character, nothing too complicated about him. His legs I'm going to fix to his body, and I'm doing 2 walk cycles today if we get time, and this first one I want to kind of keep it as simple as I can. So as I say, that's the fixed body. I'm not redrawing it, we're not doing anything special with it. We're just going to add his legs, and his legs are going to be joined just there. So I'll pop a dot where I want the top of the leg to be. And we're going to reuse this body for each drawing in this cycle. So the first thing to do is, we've got the drawing here on frame 1. I want to create 7 more frames of that body, and that creates an 8 frame cycle. And why do I want 8 frames? If you look here at the top right on the reference, you'll see, let me bring that out and make it larger. You'll see there's 4 main positions for this type of walk cycle. It starts off with the contact position at the top left here, and that's where your feet first contact the floor while you're walking. Then you've got the down position where you'll bend your contacting leg and your body comes downwards. Then your other leg passes at the back, so that's the passing position. And then as it swings forward, you tend to go on tiptoe, and that's the up position as your body lifts up. And the next one is contact with the opposite foot. So really you've got 4 positions of contact, down, passing and up on one leg, and then the same 4 on the opposite leg. So you want an 8 drawing cycle to have that repeated. Let me change, little tip for you here, let me change the colour editor. Instead of the colour wheel being above the sliders, let's put them side by side, which you can do by pressing this button here at the bottom right, the arrow button, and then now side by side, so they're much easier to use in this compact layout. I'll also change my thumbnails for the palette to be small, and then that can be quite small. I don't need as much space. Gives me more space for this flipbook. So there's my 4 cycles there at the top right. So I need 7 copies of this body. You can choose to redraw the character on each frame, and that might be a nicer way to do it, to give a bit more movement to the character with the lines boiling and shifting around. We might do that on the second cycle, but on the first cycle I'll just literally copy and paste this. The best way to do that, if you click and drag on the 7 frames after the drawing, then press the D key to duplicate that drawing, that will create 7 duplicate drawings. And we want to then adjust the heights of the body to create this walk cycle position, just moving up and down. So if we go to drawing 2 and turn on the onion skin by pressing the blob to the left, I'll then use the selection tool, and again, changing tools, glance over the tool options, make sure it's what you expect. So I'm in freehand mode, so I can draw around that monster, and I can click and drag to move them around. So the first position is the contact position. The next one is down. So let's just move him down a little bit. And the amount you move him up and down to just this bounce in the walk cycle depends again on your character. If they're in a happier mood, they'll be more bouncy as they walk. If they're really sad, they'll be quite static and stay at the same height as they slowly walk forwards without too much up and down movement. But as I say, for this first walk, we're going to go middle of the road just to get a feel for the basic cycle. So we'll place that there. And before I go any further, I'm going to add the detail of which stage in the cycle we're at. So frame 1 is the contact. So I'm going to draw a letter C to the right hand side. Then it's down. Then it's the passing position. So letter P, and then up. And you'll see me doing this quite a bit today. As I go to frame number 5, drawing number 5, I will turn on the onion skin for the drawing 4 frames before, and that'll give me the same stage in the cycle, because it's repeated every 4 frames, but for the opposite leg. So this is then the contact, but the opposite leg, then down, then passing, and we didn't create 8, so I'll move to frame 8 and press D. So now I've got a duplicate of 8, and then this is up. Let me just erase that. Okay, it's back to number 2. Let's get this right. Number 1, number 2 goes down, and number 3. If you look at the line here in the reference, you'll see the head is above where the contact position line is. So I use the selection tool to highlight it and move it up a little bit. Let's turn the onion skin on. There we go. So it's up a little bit from contact, not a lot, just a little bit. 3. There. And then it cycles back to the contact again. So this is where I said on frame 5, I'll have the onion skin going to frame 1, because it's going to be in exactly the same position, because that's still the contact position. Number 6, it goes down. So I'll move it down to the same position as the other down for the other leg. The same for the passing position, that goes up a little bit. And then the actual up goes up a lot. And you might choose to have a different height on each of these positions for the left leg and the right leg, especially if your character has some sort of reason to walk at different heights. Either they're injured, maybe they're limping, or depending what they're walking on, they might need to walk higher on one leg than the other. But for the simple basic walk cycle, I'll copy 4 frames later the contact, the down, the passing, and the up. Soda Pop's joined us. Hello Soda Pop, good to have you here. Yes, shift and trace, we might be using that later on the second walk cycle. I'm trying to keep things as simple as I can for the first one to get things started. You may notice at the bottom of my or the right hand side of the toolbar on the timeline, I've already added the shift and trace buttons the other day as I was preparing for today, ready for if I want to use them. Copy paste and duplicate is a lot faster for this kind of situation. And while you're online, Soda Pop, I'd say thanks again for those textures the other day. I mentioned it earlier in the stream at the beginning about the new downloads of the textures and Tom's plugins. So thank you for doing that. Right, so there's my 8 frames. I've got the play marker on frame 1 and frame 8. So I know that at 24 frames a second, this is going to be too fast. But if I hit loop play, you'll see how it moves. It just shakes around. So for walk cycle, you want this to be much slower, and we'll need to add in-betweens later. So let's go half the speed first, and you'll see how quickly that goes. So 12 frames a second. Still quite quick for a walk cycle, but again, it depends on the intent of your character. So if they're determined trying to get somewhere in a hurry, it still might be a walk, not a run. So they might have gripped fists as they're walking, quite determined to get somewhere. So you might want that kind of pace. So again, you'll decide on the pace for you. 8 frames a second I found is quite a nice pace for walking. But for simplicity and for in-betweening, 6 frames a second works really nice for me. So that if you're in between these frames, you can then play this at 12 frames a second on 1s or 24 FPS on 2s. But we'll get to that later if that's not very clear. So I'll work on 6 today, and you can see my initials for the contact, down, passing and up positions are shown on one side of the screen and on the other for the left leg and then for the right leg. So you can see that we're going through the 8 separate drawings, and hopefully you can also see the height of the character, and you can feel kind of the bounce of a walk cycle even without having any arms and legs on, and it's a single drawing duplicated, so it's the same image, but hopefully you can start to feel a bit of a movement. And this is the time to decide if that movement is right for your character. So the earlier you can make any repairs to your animation, the less work there is to do. So if you decide that actually the up pose is going too high, too high compared to the previous pose, then just grab the selection tool and then move them down a little bit, and the same for the final up pose. Just move them down a little bit and then take a look. Maybe the down is too far down, so again, let's move them back up a little bit on both of these. So hit save, save early, save often. So again, get a feel for your character, how he's moving, see if he's moving in the way you expect, and if so, we'll move on to the next stage. So as that's stage 1, I'd like to keep a copy of each stage in what I'm doing here, and you might decide to keep a backup on disk of your projects. You may have the backup tool that I created for OpenToonz to work with. For me, it's only practice, so I'm not too concerned about losing too much right now, so I'm not going to back anything up in that way. But what I will do is I'll select on the column header, press Ctrl C and then Ctrl V, and now I've got a copy of the body on a separate column, and I can hide one of the columns, so I've always got those 8 drawings shown in a separate column away from where I'm working right now.